world taken over by zombies, human civilization is gone. The cities are too dangerous to live in now. A boy named Marko has been living in the forest with his father since he was a baby. To help Marko stay safe, his father gives him a gun and tries to teach him how to use it. But Marko is still small and not strong enough to pull the slide back. The gun slips from his hands and falls. Nervously, Marko looks at his father. They rely on each other to survive, but his father doesn't talk much and rarely shows emotion. He doesn't seem to care much about how Marko is growing up, which makes Marko feel lonely. Even so, his father doesn't trust the zombie-filled world outside the forest and won't let Marko leave until he can protect himself. His father forbids him from leaving their safe shelter, but Marko is very curious about the world beyond the forest. Every time he goes to get water, he carves a mark on a tree by the river. Slowly, he starts making a path deeper into the unknown. One day, while exploring the woods, Marko finds an old, empty RV. He carefully walks up to it and looks inside. Then he climbs through a window and starts looking around. He finds a toy. As he's checking it out, a dark figure suddenly appears inside the RV. Marko freezes and hides in a corner, shaking with fear. Luckily, the stranger doesn't seem dangerous. The figure holds out the toy, and Marko sees that it's just another boy, someone his own age. Feeling the boy's kindness, Marko takes off his headphones and offers to share his music. Marko knows he can't tell his dad what really happened, so he hides the toy Miko gave him. Then he grabs his water bottle and quickly heads back to camp. But he's been gone too long, and his dad gets really angry. He yells at Marko so loudly that the chestnuts Marko collected fall all over the ground. Thinking Marko was just out picking chestnuts, his dad doesn't ask any more questions. After that, Marko starts visiting the RV more often and finds out that Miko lives there with his mom. Miko's mom is kind and gives him warm hugs, very different from Marko's dad, who is distant and cold. Seeing this, Marko decides to try it too. When he gets back to camp, he gives his dad a hug like Miko's mom does. But his dad quickly pushes him away. One day, Marko sees a photo of a woman he doesn't recognize in their cabin. He gathers the courage to ask his father who she is, but his father doesn't answer. Instead, he just tells Marko to go to bed. Some time ago, Marko's father gave him a storybook. In it, there was a fairy who left the forest and went to a place called Stone Valley. Marko starts to believe that his mother is like that fairy, and if he can find Stone Valley, he'll find her too. One day, while Marko and his father are out hunting in the forest, like they always do, they suddenly hear gunshots in the distance. Scared, Marko hides behind a big tree. From there, he sees Miko's mother holding her arm and kneeling in front of his father. To Marko's shock, his father walks up to her, and without waiting, pulls the trigger. Terrified, Marko runs straight home and hides under his bed. He's shaking and stays there until late at night. When his father finally comes back, he looks completely out of control. His hands are shaking as he drinks strong liquor, muttering things that don't make sense. Watching his father like this makes Marko even more sure that he has to find the mother he never knew. The next morning, Marko quietly packs his things and leaves the cabin without saying a word. He goes to Miko and convinces him to come along on the journey to Stone Valley to find his mother. But as they walk through the forest, Miko suddenly stops. He refuses to go any further. With no other choice, Marko decides to tell him the truth. Soon, the two boys reach the edge of the forest. Just as they're about to step out, a strange figure appears in the distance. They quickly crouch down, holding their breath so they won't be seen. Carefully, they follow a narrow path and find an old, abandoned car to hide in. As the sound of heavy footsteps gets closer, both boys nervously look out the windows. Suddenly, zombies start banging on the glass, making a chilling noise. Miko panics. Marko, just as scared, tries to calm him by covering Miko's ears with his hands. He doesn't know what to do until, out of nowhere, all the zombies outside drop to the ground. The car door opens and Marko, still shaking, is shocked to see his father standing there. His father quickly checks Marko, making sure he's not hurt or bitten, then lets out a deep breath of relief. He ignores Miko completely. He grabs his arm and insists they go back to the camp right away. But Marko pulls his arm away and yells at him. Angry and hurt, Marko accuses his father of being a bad person. He blames him for killing Miko's mother, and even says he thinks his father might have had something to do with his own mother's death. His father doesn't have time to explain. All he knows is that the noise they made will bring more zombies. But Marko refuses to leave. With no other choice, his father quickly hides Marko in a safe spot, then runs back to help Marko. His aim is sharp, each shot drops a zombie. It doesn't take long before he clears the area and pulls Marko to safety. Just then, Marko turns around and freezes. A zombie has quietly snuck up behind him. Panicking, he grabs his father's arm. His hands shake as he points the gun. The loud shot surprises his father, who quickly runs toward Marko. But before he can reach him, a zombie jumps and knocks him down. Luckily, his father fights it off and avoids getting hurt. He gets up fast and runs to Marko, realizing there was no real danger. He kneels beside Marko to tell him Marko is safe. Then, with urgency in his voice, he tells Marko they need to get back to camp before it's too late. At that moment, his father rolls up his sleeve and shows a fresh bite on his arm. Fear and sadness hit him as he understands what that means. Quickly, he steps away from Marko and chains himself to a nearby tree. Marko, feeling something isn't right, walks over to his father. That's when his father finally tells the truth. He didn't kill Marko's mother out of cruelty. She had already been bitten, and ending her pain was the only way to help her. Marko hugs his father tightly. His father wants nothing more than to hug him back, but he's afraid of passing the infection. He knows he doesn't have much time left. Soon, he'll turn into a bloodthirsty zombie. With a heavy heart, he tells Marko to leave while he still can. Marko, holding back tears, does what his father says. He takes Marko's hand, and together, they walk down the path. Not long after, his father's eyes start to turn white. Moments later, the quiet forest is broken by the sound of a single gunshot. Marko stops for a moment, his heart heavy with sadness, but he keeps moving. Without his father to protect him, he knows he has to be strong now. As night falls, Marko and Marko curl up under a big tree. Marko feels lost and unsure about what lies ahead, but a photo of his mother gives him a small sense of hope. The next morning, they set out again at first light. After what feels like forever, they finally step out of the forest and into a wide open field. They follow a set of train tracks, moving forward, not knowing how far they've gone. Their food is almost gone, but they keep going. Fortunately, they come across a man sitting by the tracks, listening to a radio. The man looks Marko up and down, trying to figure him out. Gathering his courage, Marko asks the man for food. The man doesn't answer right away. Instead, he asks where they're going. When Marko tells him, the man says he wishes he could help, but he can't leave. He explains that he has to take care of several kids in his house. Curious, Marko looks toward a nearby building with barred windows, and then he understands the sad truth. The man's children have been infected and turned into zombies. He can't bring himself to hurt them, so he keeps them locked inside. After eating and regaining some strength, Marko and Marko continue on. Their playful chatter lightens the mood, making the long walk feel a little less lonely. As the sun begins to set, Marko and Marko know they need to find somewhere to spend the night. Soon, they spot an abandoned train sitting on the tracks. It looks like the perfect place to rest. Marko carefully walks up and peeks through a small opening, only to find the train car packed with zombies. Startled, the boys jump back. Thankfully, the zombies are trapped inside and can't escape. Letting out a breath of relief, they quickly move away. But just as they near a village, two armed men suddenly appear and block their way. With no weapons and no way to fight back, the boys are forced to do as they're told. The men shove them into a vehicle, and after a tense, silent ride, they arrive at a survivor camp. The leader, John, studies the boys carefully. His expression shifts to shock when he realizes they're both healthy and not infected. John explains that, since the zombie outbreak began years ago, every baby born to survivors has carried the virus. Humanity is on the brink of extinction. Seeing two uninfected boys fills John with a rare sense of hope. He believes they might be the key to finding a cure and saving what's left of the world. But while Marko is calm and easy to manage, Marko is more skeptical and defiant. This worries John. Uncomfortable with Marko's rebellious nature, John eventually gives the order to get rid of him. One of John's men, a bearded guy, is sent to do the job, but he can't bring himself to hurt a child. Instead, he secretly decides to let Marko escape. But Marko refuses to leave Marko behind. When bearded guy refuses to help any further, he sneaks back into the camp alone. After finding Marko, the two quietly avoid the guards and slip away into the night. The next morning, John learns that the boys are gone. Furious, he doesn't hesitate. He shoots bearded guy in the head for betraying him. Meanwhile, Marko and Marko have no idea how far they've run. Marko begins to whimper, asking for water. Tired and overwhelmed, Marko loses his temper and yells at him, saying he should have left him behind. But when he sees Miko's tear-filled eyes, something in him softens. Marko sets off to find water. He stumbles upon an old, abandoned building and carefully steps inside. The place is full of leftover supplies from people who had passed through before. Marko gathers some clothes and finds half a bottle of water in a dusty box. As Marko steps out onto the balcony, he gets his first true look at the world beyond the forest. What he sees is devastating. As far as the eye can see, most people have transformed into monstrous creatures. In that moment, Marko understands the painful truth. The forest wasn't just a home. It was a safe, sheltered world. A fairy tale his father had created to protect him from the horrors of reality. Suddenly, there's noise from the ground floor. John and his men have tracked them down. John pulls out his weapon, ready to kill Miko without hesitation. But just as he's about to act, a drone appears overhead, causing John to freeze, his body tense with caution. Before anyone can react, gunfire erupts. John and his men are instantly hit with bullets as they collapse to the ground. Hidden in the shadows, Marko watches quietly. Soon, two heavily armed soldiers appear. Miko sees Marko and quickly shakes his head, signaling him to stay hidden and run. But Marko accidentally makes a noise, catching the soldiers' attention. Seeing this, Miko silently grabs a weapon from the ground. The soldiers react fast, and before they even realize what's happened, they shoot and kill Miko. Marko is crushed. Miko died trying to protect him. Once the soldiers leave, Marko pulls himself together and moves on, still determined to find his mother. But the truth sinks in. Stone Valley, the place his father told him about, isn't real. It was just another part of the fairy tale. After leaving the safety of the forest, Marko slowly comes to understand the full harshness of the real world. Overwhelmed with anger and grief, he rips the fairy tale book apart and lets out a cry. But all that answers is only the cold, empty silence. He climbs to the top of a mountain and looks out over the vast city below. With nowhere else to go, Marko, filled with curiosity, decides to enter the city. A huge stone forest unlike anything he's ever seen. For a moment, he wonders if this could be the legendary Stone Valley his father once spoke about. But the city, too, is full of zombies. Carefully, Marko sneaks past them and eventually finds an abandoned hospital. Inside, he opens the door to an old patient's room and is stunned to see a woman dressed all in white, the same figure from the fairy tale his father told him. Thinking she might be his mother, Marko steps closer, his heart full of hope, and reaches out to hug her. The woman grabs his hand, but then Marko feels a sudden, sharp pain on the back of it. She turns around, and instead of a kind, gentle face, Marko sees the horrifying face of a zombie. Marko runs as fast as he can, slamming a metal rod into place to block the door behind him. The pounding of the zombies echoes through the hallway, loud and relentless. Overwhelmed and broken, Marko breaks down in tears. The weight of reality is too heavy for him to carry alone. After escaping the hospital, Marko feels nothing. His face is blank, his spirit numb. He comes across a wall covered in missing person posters and quietly adds a photo of his own mother to it. Then, drawn by a noise, he wanders into an abandoned building. As he gets closer, he realizes it's just a holographic projection, not a real person. But the sound has already drawn a horde of zombies toward the building. The thin iron door shakes under their weight. It won't hold much longer. Tired and feeling hopeless, Marko finally gives up trying to run away. He puts on his headphones and waits for the zombies to come. Just then, bullets start raining down from the sky. When Marko opens his eyes, he finally sees the fairy he's been looking for. She shines so brightly that it almost hurts to look at her. The woman, a soldier, takes off her mask. She sees the wound on Marko's hand and quickly points her weapon at him. But Marko stays calm. He hugs her gently and wipes the tears from her face. Then, the soldier notices the letter M on Marko's palm. It's a mark that shows he's a post-apocalyptic newborn, someone who is immune to the virus and represents humanity's last hope. Marko takes her hand, and together they walk away from the ruins. If you did enjoy our recap, do give us a thumbs up and share. See you on the next one.